Hey, and welcome. Today, we're going to break down something that trips up almost every single person learning English: numbers. It sounds simple, right? But whether you're trying to catch a flight, talk business, or just share a story, getting numbers right is absolutely essential for communicating clearly. So let's start with a really big number, just to show you why this matters. In the US alone, there are over 26 million people with limited English skills. 26 million. Just think about that for a second. That means every single day, millions of conversations are happening where a tiny mistake with a number could cause a huge problem. This isn't just about passing a test. It's about making your life easier and your communication way more effective. And this quote, wow, it just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? This is exactly what we're talking about. It's a perfect example of a high-stakes, real-world consequence. You hear 50 instead of 15, and that's it. Your flight is gone. A simple mix-up can mean a missed opportunity, a costly mistake, or just a really, really bad day. So the big question is, how do we stop this from happening? Well, let's dive in. We're going to walk through 5 key areas to take you from feeling confused to feeling totally confident. First, we'll look at why numbers are so darn tricky. Then, we'll get into the secrets of pronouncing and hearing them correctly. After that, we are going to untangle all that confusion with commas and points, then tackle real-world stuff like prices and dates. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with how to write them out like a pro. All right, so first things first, what is the actual root of the problem here? It all starts inside our brains. See, since we were kids, we've learned to connect a symbol, like the number 3, with a very specific sound in our own language. That connection is automatic, it's deep, and it's instant. So when you start learning English, you're asking your brain to do something incredibly difficult. You're telling it to take a symbol it's known its entire life and connect it to a totally new and unfamiliar sound. The picture of 3 hasn't changed, but the sound 3 is brand new. And this gets even harder if a sound like the th in 3 doesn't even exist in your native language. It's literally like trying to rewrite the code in your own brain. And all that mental gymnastics leads us right into the biggest minefield of all: pronunciation. You know, in English, a teeny tiny difference in how you say something can completely change the meaning. And there is no place where that is more true than with numbers. So it really boils down to a few key problem sounds. Take the th sound, for example. It's so hard because you have to put your tongue between your teeth, which feels super weird if you're not used to it. If you don't do that, 3 can easily come out sounding like tree or free. It's the same with vowels. The sound in 30, like in the word bird, is totally different from the sound in 40, like in the word horse. Being able to hear and make those subtle differences is a huge game changer. But here's the good news. This slide right here, it's got a simple secret to telling these numbers apart, and it's all about word stress. Seriously, it's where you put the emphasis. Okay, listen closely. For the teens, the stress is always on the end. 13, 14. Now listen to the tens. The stress jumps to the beginning. 30, 40. Hear that shift? 13 versus 30. That little change in emphasis makes all the difference in the world. If you can master this one trick, you will solve the #1 most common number mix-up in English. Okay, so you've got the sounds down. What's next? Well, the next hurdle is how numbers actually look on a page. And this brings us to something that causes endless headaches, especially in international business: punctuation. That tiny little comma and that simple little point can completely change a number's value, all depending on where you are in the world. And this table just lays it all out, doesn't it? In English-speaking countries, we use a comma to separate thousands, which makes big numbers easier to read, and we use a point for decimals. But in a lot of other places, like in Europe, they do the exact opposite. They use a point to separate thousands and a comma for the decimal. Getting this wrong is the difference between, say, $10 and $10,000. So yeah, it's a detail you really have to get right. And just to keep things interesting, even though the symbol is the same, what we call it in English actually changes depending on what it's doing. When you're reading a decimal number, you call it a point. So 15.2 is 15.2. But for an email or a website, it's a dot, like in ngvid.com. And then at the end of a sentence, it's a period if you're in the US or a full stop in the UK. Same symbol, 3 different jobs, 3 different names. So we've got the sounds and the symbols down. But what about using them in the real world? Well, this is where it gets kind of fun. Let's look at 3 of the most common places you'll see numbers: prices, decimals, and dates. And guess what? Each one has its own special set of rules. Reading a price in English follows a really specific pattern, but it's actually pretty easy once you see it. Let's take $142.75. First, you just say the big number on the left, 142. Then, and this is the key, right where the decimal point is, you say the currency, dollars. That's it. No point, no and. Then you just say the number on the right like it's a normal number, 75. So altogether, nice and smooth, it's $142.75. This is such a critical difference, so let's put a decimal and a price right next to each other. For regular decimal, like 89.223%, you say 89 point and then you say each number by itself, 223. But for a price, like $89.22, you swap the point for the currency and you read the cents as a whole number, $89.22. Once you get this pattern down, you're going to sound so much more natural when you're talking about money. Ah, dates. Another classic reason for international confusion. So you see this date, 5/6/19. What is it? Is it May 6th or is it the 5th of June? Well, the answer totally depends on who wrote it. In America, they put the month first, so that's May 6th. But in the UK and most of the world, they put the day first, which makes it the 5th of June. I've seen this cause so many mix-ups. The best advice I can give you is this. If you're ever not 100% sure, just ask. It's the only way to be certain. Saying years has its own weird, unwritten rules, and they actually change over time. For any year before 2000, we almost always say it in two pairs. So the year 1984 becomes 1984. Simple enough. Then, for that first decade of the new century, from 2000 to 2009, we switched it up and said them as thousands, so 2005 is 2005. But then, starting in 2010, we pretty much went back to the old way. So the year 2012 is 2012. It's a little strange, I know, but that's just how we do it. So speaking numbers is one thing, but if you really want to be fluent, you've got to know how to write them correctly too. And that brings us to our last section. When do you write out the word 10? And when do you just use the number 10? Well, there are some pretty simple rules that can help you out. Okay, for most writing, here's a really handy rule of thumb. If you can write the number in a single word like 1, 5, 8, go ahead and spell it out. But if it takes more than one word to write, like 25 or 156, it's usually better to just use the digits. So you'd write, I have 3 dogs, but you'd write, I have 27 cousins. It's a small thing, but it makes your writing look super professional and clean. Now listen up, because this is a grammar trap that catches so many people. When you use a number to describe something like a 5-year plan, that number part always stays singular. You would never, ever say a 5 years plan. You have to think of 5-year as one single adjective. And you know what? Adjectives don't have plurals. It's a 2-day trip, not 2 days trip. It's a 50-year-old turtle, not 50 years old. It's one single descriptive idea. So let's do a quick recap of the absolute must-knows, the 5 things that will make the biggest difference for you. Number 1, nail the stress difference between teen and toddy. Number 2, always pay attention to whether a comma or a point is being used. Number 3, use ordinal numbers, first, second, third, when you say dates. Number 4, if you see a date written in numbers, always ask to clarify the format. And number 5, keep those number adjectives singular. If you can get these 5 things right, I promise you'll avoid most of the common mistakes people make. At the end of the day, getting confident with numbers in English really just comes from one thing: practice. So I want you to think about your own experiences. What's the number or rule that's been the toughest for you? Was it mixing up 13 and 30 in a conversation? Was it the comma and point thing? You know, every little mistake has a story behind it, but every single time you correct it, you are taking a huge step towards mastering this. So keep practicing. You've got this.
You are doing great. Don't stop. Subscribe and watch the next video.